Hey, hi, hello. Okay, we are going Okay, that's my warning. The new detectives. This is the new detectives. Okay, but yes, I have an alarm for when I wake up, an alarm for my meds, alarm to remind me what time of day it is, and okay, and I'm here with my pal Eddie, and my battle buddy over there is Lulu. Let me see if I can show you. Okay, because wait, could you see her? There, see, could you see my Lulu? That's my Lulu. Yes, really, they have that whole entire side. But Lulu, she knows. Give mommy her space. But Eddie, no. Sorry, everything's falling apart when I moved the laptop. Okay. Okay, so let's head off and start with the new detectives. Now, Eddie, he's very, very needy. He has to be attached to my hip. I feel as if I have him attached at my hip. Okay. We scratching over there? Lulu, we scratching? Like you're scratching a little too much. Look at, she's so cute. Oh my god. Okay. You're my baby. Yes, you are. You are my baby. Both of y'all.
What struck us as unusual about the scene and concerned us right from the very beginning was that very near to her car,
What I did, and I didn't have the video on. I had completed this, and I did show, but not actually show because I'm not teaching how to decrease in my circle. Okay, so I completed that, and I did say I will go up and get my bag of circles and squares. I don't know quite what to make with them yet, but something will come to me. Okay, so I started another round, and I was having a little difficulty because there's something I didn't do right. Okay, but it's coming along. That's on the TV. That's on the TV. Lulu, keep it low. Okay, don't get any excited because that's what you're doing. Okay, Lulu. Okay. I have to learn to work that GoPro, okay, because that I can keep on and it gives a wider, visual.
Every day we would do something with the Denise Stewart case. We would review old leads. We'd go over old reports again. We'd look one more time at the photographs. We never gave up, even though we never really had anything good to work with. After 3 years, no one could tell her grieving family and friends. Denise Stewart had simply vanished. Meanwhile, more than 300 miles away in Arizona's Prescott Valley, authorities were grappling with a mystery of their own.
I know. I just thought of something I could do, which I had enjoyed doing years ago. doing crafts, you know? Yeah. Because, I'm in my learning phase all over again. So, it just keeps me busy. Did you get him, Lulu? Oh, oh. Where's Lulu? Okay. Eddie's running over to where Lulu is. Lulu said, I don't know, I can't stand to watch you while you pet him, and you don't pet me like that. Yeah, like having two different children. Okay. I mean, you know, Lovely, he's not sure. He's very needy. Hi, precious.
Initially, when we opened
Okay, could I finish this? Could I finish this first? Eddie.
We had
Eddie.
a human.
Come on, get up. Come on up here. Come on, get on the sofa. I'm gonna move the sofa.
Ice crystals. It was grim. The homeowner still had to
That's who you want. You want me to rub you? Okay? Come on. Eddie, let me finish this. Okay? God, I know you didn't. You didn't do that. It fell when you was getting down. I saw that.
Sheriff's deputies quickly are going to custody. Trying to steal the rental truck. They were anxious to find out more about the body in the freezer.
Yeah, just take some explaining.
Told detectives that her son was a house painter, which explained the paint cans. She said the truck had been parked there about 2 months. She didn't know anything about the freezer or its contents, except that the electricity in John's house had been turned off for 1 day, and he had asked to run a power cord from her house to the truck. At the police station, Famolaro was polite but uncooperative. He refused to answer any questions and asked to see his lawyer. Without any assistance from their suspect, investigators would have to rely on physical evidence at the scene to identify the body in the freezer and to find out how it got there. They charged Famolaro with homicide. The next day, warrant in hand, investigators entered Famolaro's house, hoping to find information about the victim.
Nice furniture.
In its frozen condition, they couldn't even discern the victim's gender.
Really nice.
Famolaro's house was crammed with his belongings. This was the home of a man who never threw anything away.
Furniture's nice.
If clues were here, it would be difficult
And
to
he's
find.
making his rounds now. He goes to the front and then to the back. The window here in the dining room and front door.
Investigators found several promising clues. The first was a set of handcuff keys that matched the cuffs on the victim.
Wow. This guy left all the telltales.
The next clue took investigators by surprise. 2 complete Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department uniforms. Deputies found 2 boxes marked Christmas, but there was nothing merry about them. Inside, officers found blood-stained women's clothing, a bloody hammer and nail puller. They also found a pair of women's shoes. The backs badly scuffed, as though the woman who wore them was dragged. And that wasn't all.
We did locate numerous female identifications. That included social security cards, I believe some driver's license, and other identification, obviously raising the concern of maybe we had additional victims.
Yavapai County Police had to face the very real possibility that John Famolaro was a serial killer. Arizona investigators looking into a murder have every reason to believe that there may be more than one victim. To test that theory, investigators brought in cadaver dogs to locate more bodies on John Famolaro's property. The dogs, trained to detect the slightest whiff of decay, alerted their handlers several times.
Wow.
Officers dug up every spot and still found nothing. But they never completely gave up the suspicion that the killer had struck before. Police followed up on every piece of ID found in the Christmas boxes. Much to their relief, they found that each woman was alive and accounted for. Except one from Costa Mesa, California. Her name was Denise Huber. To confirm her ID, Yavapai County forensic technician Mike Winnie lifted a thumbprint from the thawing victim and compared it with the one printed on Denise Huber's California driver's license. The prints matched, identifying Huber as the victim. To authorities in Arizona, the name meant nothing. But to Costa Mesa detective Ron Smith, it was the news he had waited 3 anxious years to hear.
The call I received from Lieutenant Scott Masher from Yavapai County was that he thought maybe he had a body identified as Denise Huber and asked us if we were familiar with Denise Huber. Well, of course, I almost fell out of my chair when he mentioned the name.
Now that she had been found, investigators in Arizona had to determine how she had been killed. Working with frozen and decomposed remains,
The body, let's say it's on the East Coast, and, you know, they front, you know, or they get in touch with West Coast, and then when they find out it's part of a case or ongoing case or cold case that they had, then they do an investigation again.
It took the body approximately 2 days to thaw where we could actually perform the internal examination.
On Friday, July 16, 1994, Yavapai detective Scott Nasher and Costa Mesa detective Ron Smith, along with other officers, gathered in the medical examiner's lab to observe the autopsy. The cause of death was determined to be blunt force trauma to the skull, resulting in multiple fractures. To identify the murder weapon, investigators needed to evaluate the entire skull to see where and how the blows had been struck. They called in forensic anthropologist Laura Fulgeniti.
Reconstructing a person's skull is very similar to doing a jigsaw puzzle. Essentially, you have about 50 pieces and you need to put them back into what you know to be the right composition.
It took Fulgeniti 2 days to reconstruct the skull, never losing sight of the fact that this victim was once a person.
And I remember standing in this very room thinking to myself, how did you come to be in my sphere? This is not right. It's not natural for you to be here.
She determined that the victim had sustained more than 35 blows to the head.
I mean, there's so many ways it takes a job to kill somebody.
To be certain,
The lab ran tests. Technicians were able to establish a DNA profile from the blood residue on the nail polish. It matched the DNA profile taken of the victim's own blood. The match confirmed that they had found the murder weapon. To build their case, investigators had to retrace the events that led from the victim's abandoned car on a California freeway to John Famillaro's freezer in Arizona.
It was very important for both agencies, the Yavapai County Sheriff's Office and the Costa Mesa Police Department, to work together and piece the evidence from California and Arizona to one case, one solid case, in order to successfully prosecute this.
The Costa Mesa Police Department gathered information on Famillaro's activities during the time he lived in California. They learned that he had attended the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department Reserve Academy, but he couldn't make the grade and dropped out after just a few weeks. He kept his uniforms, which police found at his house. Further investigation led detectives to a warehouse in Laguna Hills, 12 miles from where Denise Huber's empty car was found. John Famillaro had stored some paint and supplies in the warehouse, then moved everything out when he left the area in August 1992, 13 months after Denise Huber vanished. Investigators thought it was likely that Famillaro had committed the murder here. They hoped to recover forensic evidence that would tie the killer to the crime and determine where the killer's trial would take place. Police searched the unit for evidence of the crime using luminol to expose traces of blood. Applied to a surface and viewed under an alternate light source, luminol reveals blood stains invisible to the naked eye, even traces left years earlier.
We found that the warehouse was huge, but I wanted every square inch luminol for blood. Almost the very last bottle in the very last corner that we looked, we sprayed luminol into the corner against the wall. And all of a sudden, the luminol just lit up. This bright glow showed us we found what we were looking for.
Technicians compared this blood to a sample taken from the victim in Arizona. They matched. The forensic analysis gave Detective Smith of the Costa Mesa Police the proof he needed to make the case.
The forensic science in testing the blood was absolutely critical. Number one, it established that the crime occurred in California, and that established jurisdiction. It also positively identified that blood as Denise. It put Denise at that scene.
Famillaro never confessed. The forensic evidence spoke for him. The investigators had successfully matched the blood in the California storage unit to the victim in Arizona, and that placed the victim within deadly proximity of John Famillaro. Authorities believe that Huber pulled off the road with a flat tire. Spotting his prey, John Famillaro approached him in the guise of lending help. He abducted Denise Huber in Costa Mesa, California, the early morning of June 3, 1991. Famillaro murdered her sometime later. Hid her body in a freezer, trucked it to Arizona, and kept it until police discovered his crime 3 years later.
I know what I can
John Famillaro was sentenced to death. He
I
awaits execution on California's death row. Famillaro hid his crime by keeping the body close to him. Other killers are not so conniving. They can be equally elusive. It was a December evening in 1990. Peggy Phillips wondered why her husband Dean was taking so long to lock up the laundrette they owned in Ozona, Texas. It was just next door, but he'd been gone 20 minutes. She found him lying on the floor, bleeding and barely conscious. Police and paramedics raced to save him. Peggy thought that Dean must have fallen and hit his head. But the paramedics could see that this was no accident. Dean Phillips had been beaten nearly to death. Peggy watched as the paramedics loaded her husband into the ambulance. It was the last time she saw him alive. Dean Phillips died early the next morning, December 26th. The cause of death? Blunt force trauma to the head. Investigators determined that Phillips had interrupted a burglary and paid dearly for it. They found only one hard clue, a single fingerprint lifted from a coin box left on the floor. They sent the print to the Texas Department of Public Safety. Like small-town police departments all over Texas, the Ozona police depended on the DPS crime lab for forensic services. This time, though, the Department of Public Safety came up empty. The coin box fingerprint didn't match anything they had on file. News of Dean Phillips's death spread through Ozona. Crockett County Chief Deputy Sheriff Alton Davis was determined to catch the criminal who had shattered the quiet of this little town.
We've got a population of probably 3,000 to 4,000 people, so it's a small town. Everybody knows everybody, and it was a real shock to the community that something like this could happen in Ozona.
The community stepped forward to help the investigation. A witness reported seeing two local men wearing bloody clothes the night Phillips was killed. A warrant was obtained, and their bloody clothes were confiscated before they had time to launder them. Brought in for questioning, the men claimed they were hunters, and that the blood was from a deer they had poached. The investigators were skeptical, until they got confirmation from the DPS trial lab. The blood was indeed from a deer. The men's fingerprints didn't match the one lifted from the coin box at Phillips's laundry. The case's first promising tip amounted to nothing. A clerk at a convenience store right off the interstate gave investigators their next lead.
Got a couple minutes I talk to you?
A man came in an hour before the murder and asked where the laundrette was.
And we're just checking the neighbors.
She described him as stuffy, with dirty blonde hair and a t-shirt with radio call letters.
What time is that?
He drove a beat-up blue van with a
I'm
green door
Lulu.
on the passenger side.
Mm-hmm.
There may have been a passenger in the van. Investigators hope to see the suspect on the store's surveillance tape.
Good. Okay. So you have a good evening. Thanks a lot.
But the security camera was old. The man's face was a blur. Neither the DPS nor the FBI could
Popcorn.
enhance the image electronically. The investigators were convinced they had their suspect on this tape, but his image, like their chances of finding him, were dimmed. As the investigation into the murder of Dean Phillips continued, witnesses reported seeing a strange blue van in town the night of the murder. Some thought they saw two people in it. Sheriff Alton Davis believed that Phillips's killer was a stranger just passing through town.
Ozona is right on Interstate 10. more or less out in the middle
You
of
want to
nowhere.
go
This
this
is the
way
first one
or
we've
go
had
back?
where someone has came off the interstate and murdered one of our local people.
Investigators knew the killer was probably hundreds of miles away by now. And then they got the call. A van, matching the one described by the witnesses, was
Okay,
stopped
Lulu.
about 200 miles west of town. Davis sped to the
Thank
scene.
you.
We found an old GMC van, light blue, that had a dark passenger door on it, dark primer color. And we took photographs of the van. We talked to there was a Hispanic male driving it, which didn't fit the description of our suspect.
The case had run into another dead end. Reviewing the clues they'd gathered so far, investigators realized that all they had to go on was a blurry surveillance tape and a store clerk's fading recollection. They needed some way to turn these hazy clues into solid information. Then they recalled Karen Taylor, an experienced forensic artist with the Special Crimes Service of the Texas DPS. Taylor had worked with the Ozona police on missing persons cases. She is a pioneer in the forensic art and science of facial reconstruction, developing witnesses' vague descriptions into recognizable faces of criminal suspects.
My function is to take some bit of information from a crime that occurs, produce some sort of a visual image that can be put out in the media, and hopefully it will trigger additional information that can be used to connect the crime to the victim or connect the crime to the suspect.
Ozona police sent Taylor stills taken from the videotape. But after she had evaluated the black and white photos, she wasn't sure she'd be able to help.
So I had a look at those stills to see just what I could determine about the face. It was very blurry, the quality was pretty poor. So I could see that there wasn't much likelihood we could enhance that video electronically. And it would probably boil down to my trying to just do some sort of a sketch based on what I could see.
Taylor knew that while every feature might not be rendered perfectly, the sketch's resemblance to the suspect would be strong enough to help the investigation.
Well, after years of doing this, I've come to believe that the most important thing to capture in a face for a forensic artist to trigger recognition is getting the proportions right. Each of the component parts in a face, each of the features, the eyes, nose, mouth, is important, but it's not as important as the arrangement of those features on a face.
Taylor wasn't sure the image had enough information for her to work from. Then she noticed a feature she'd overlooked: the store clerk. She had talked with the suspect face to face. Taylor hoped the clerk might provide the missing details she needed to sharpen the picture.
Using the video stills, I prepared as much of a drawing as I could, maybe 85% done, and then faxed it to the witness, got on the phone with her, and she was able to make some changes. She said she wanted me to make the eyes look light, make the lower face look more slim, and I did that. We hung up. I spent about 15 minutes making those alterations, and then I refaxed it to her, and she checked it and said, yes, that's right. So I was able to get the benefit of her long-distance input over the phone and using the fax.
Here he was, the most likely suspect in the murder of Dean Phillips. The Crockett County Sheriff's Office prepared a crime bulletin. Karen Taylor's drawing of the suspect's face was circulated across the country. And to every radio station where someone might recognize the call letters on the suspect's shirt. Taylor's drawing represented the investigation's last hope. But
you don't have to stare at me.
Brought no response. The Dean Phillips murder case came to a dead halt.
Down.
The beating death of Dean Phillips looked like it was destined to go unsolved. Sheriff Alton Davis and his team had exhausted their last leads.
Eventually, we ruled everybody out we were getting, and the leads stopped coming in. and we didn't have anything to work on. And it just more or less went cold, and we just had to sit until we got some other type of leads.
5 years came and went without another clue or lead. But Peggy Phillips was determined to bring her husband's murderer to justice. She contacted a television crime show and asked if they'd run her story. In August 1996, just over 5.5 years after Phillips was killed, the TV show aired the story of his murder and featured Karen Taylor's drawing. That's what got the phones ringing. From around the country, viewers called in leads. Texas Ranger Jerry Byrne fielded the calls and directed the investigation. One tip led into Paul Wesley Taylor, a convict at Utah's minimum security prison in Draper. Ranger Byrne contacted Draper Prison and asked for Taylor's records and a photograph. When he saw it, Byrne felt that at last they had tracked down their suspect.
The photograph of Paul Wesley Taylor was nearly identical to a composite drawing that a DPS artist had conducted back in 1991. Initially, I felt like it was too good to be true.
Byrne sent Taylor's records and fingerprint card to the DPS. They matched Taylor's right ring finger with the coin box fingerprint. After years without progress, this was a giant step forward. Investigators went back to the original set of clues, looking for more connections to the suspect. They found out that Taylor's brother worked at a radio station with the call letters seen on Taylor's shirt. They were now certain Paul Wesley Taylor was involved with the murder of Dean Phillips. But they wanted to know about the van's passenger, a witness, or possibly an accomplice to Phillips' murder. Taylor's arrest records showed that his girlfriend had been with him at the time of his arrest in Georgia. Georgia authorities located the woman. Her answers filled the remaining gaps in the case against Taylor. She told Ranger Byrne that they had traveled through Texas during December 1990, and that Taylor had pulled up outside of a laundrette and gone in. She saw him fighting. He returned to the van with blood on his shirt. She certainly didn't know that anyone had been killed. She led investigators to a field where Taylor had ditched his bloody clothes, along with a stolen coin box. They now had a credible witness who placed Taylor in the laundrette at the time of the murder. Utah extradited Paul Wesley Taylor back to Texas. On September 15, 1998, nearly 8 years after the killing, he pled guilty to the capital murder of Dean Phillips. On the 21st, he was sentenced to life in prison. Forensic artist Karen Taylor had turned a single blurry photograph into an image that helped unmask and apprehend a bald-faced killer.
When that photograph and drawing were presented, they knew that it was Paul Wesley Taylor. That photograph and that composite drawing is what broke this case open.
Investigators speculate that Paul Wesley Taylor got off the interstate in Ozona to get some food and gas. Short of money, Taylor got the idea to knock over the laundrette after closing time. Dean Phillips was in the wrong place at the wrong time. In other cases, tragedy stalks its victims. August 16, 1989, Joe Gilbreth finished work and arrived at his home in Villanelle, Georgia. He was looking forward to spending the evening with his baby girl, Amber, and his wife, Nikia. He noticed that his wife's car was gone. This was odd. Nakia was usually home fixing supper at this hour. When he went inside, he started to worry. Nakia would never let Amber sit in pajamas all day. There was no way she'd ever leave the baby in the house by herself. The doors were unlocked. It didn't look like they had been tampered with. When Nakia's family told Joe they hadn't heard from her, he called the police. The Walker County Sheriff's Department sent officers to investigate. Joe and his mother-in-law reported 3 missing items: a blue telephone cord that had been ripped from the wall, a bedspread that had a sheet stitched to one side, and all of Nakia's underwear. Based on what he found in the house, Detective Pat Bedford believed that Nakia Gilbreth's disappearance was more sinister than the simple missing persons case he was originally sent to investigate.
My first impressions are, she was taken out of here bound. Somebody forcibly was taking her from this residence. When you tie that into the fact that it was realized that whole drawer full of her undergarments and lingerie was missing, makes you think that we're dealing with one of the serious crime here.
Check around, see if there's anything missing by chance.
Joe Gilbreth told the police that the day had started like any other.
They checked all the house.
The alarm went off at 5:30. Joe got up and got ready for work. Nakia went back to bed. And by 6 a.m., the house was quiet. Joe and the baby were the last to have seen Nakia. A squad car was stationed at the house in case she might return. But Nakia never came home. On August 18, 1989, the day after she had disappeared, the Walker County Sheriff's Department had little to go on.
We got a tragedy here. We got a problem. At first, no good leads to follow up on. Her car had not been located. She had not been located. Didn't appear to have any leads from talking to neighbors and searching the immediate area. We had nothing at that point.
But that soon changed when Nakia's mother found her daughter's car abandoned on a logging road a half mile north of the Gilbreth house. Investigators hoped they'd find clues to help locate her. Technicians raised fingerprints all over the car, but they belonged to members of the Gilbreth family. Officers found indications of a second car parked next to Nakia. It was an ominous sign, but the tire impression wasn't distinct enough to photograph or print. Nakia's mother noted that the baby quilt Nakia always kept in the back seat was missing, and that was it. Nothing at the scene offered a clue of what had happened to Nakia or where she might be now. Still, her family held out hope that she'd come back to them unharmed. Though investigators believed she was a victim of foul play, they had no evidence and no suspects. Joe had passed a polygraph, indicating that he wasn't involved. All they had were a few missing items and an abandoned car, but still no sign of Nakia. Two days later, a boy collecting empty cans along the highway made a crucial, gruesome discovery. Her body was too decomposed for a positive visual ID, though it was a white female, about Nakia's size, with the clothes and jewelry Joe had described. Dental records confirmed everyone's worst fears. The autopsy determined that Nakia had died from asphyxiation. The examination also revealed marks around her wrists and ankles, marks that could have been made with telephone cord. But there was no other significant forensic evidence. No hairs or fibers, no fingerprints on the body. Nothing that might dictate the investigation's next step. Investigators considered a number of suspects, but none of them panned out. Leads dried up. The case went cold.
Unfortunately, we were going nowhere in the case. We had no good leads, no good suspects. Any tips that we got, we did everything from roadblocks, car to car, house to house, door to door searches, searched the area thoroughly. We weren't able to really locate anything that was helping us. Several months went by now, but we really weren't making any progress in
And then, 4 months after Nakia Gilbreth disappeared, investigators found a similar case in nearby Gordon County. A young woman was abducted by an intruder while her child slept. For 14 hours, he forced her to model lingerie for him and assaulted her repeatedly. He brought her home. Before police could identify the woman's assailant, her son.
Lulu. Okay.
When investigators ran the truck's license plate, they discovered that it was registered to James Ray Ward. He worked for a nearby well-drilling company. A woman picked out Ward's picture from a photo lineup. She recalled that during the day she was being held, she told her assailant that she hadn't had a chance to get her child a Christmas tree. Officers took Ward into custody a short time later. Ward pled guilty to rape and was just starting a 20-year prison term. In their check into his whereabouts prior to his arrest, police learned that Ward had built a well at the Gilbreths a year earlier. Then he returned to check on it in July 1989, just a month before Nakia was killed. Ward's employer said that drillers were never sent back to check on wells. Ward had acted on his own. The similarities between the abduction of his rape victim and the abduction of Nakia Gilbreth provided police with their only lead. When officers searched the home Ward shared with his wife and children, they found a stash of women's undergarments that didn't belong to Ward's wife. Detectives also uncovered a receipt for well drilling made out to the Gilbreths. But it was much more than a receipt.
I had directions, the road name, the mileage that would have led me right to the Gilbreth residence. The description of the victim he had written in there matched her description, including the age of the daughter that the victim had. Then had her first direct link from the murder to the suspect.
Investigators also found items missing from the Gilbreth's home. A bathing suit bottom, a baby quilt, a bedspread, and a blue telephone cord. In order to build the strongest case against Ward, investigators needed to prove premeditation. They obtained a statement Ward had written regarding the abduction he'd pled guilty to. They wanted to compare this writing sample with the incriminating notes jotted on the Gilbreth's receipt found in his home. Document examiner Karen Scott performed the analysis.
A handwriting comparison is basically a side-by-side comparison. I look for features in the writing of one set, and I see if I find the same thing on the other set. And I'm looking for things like how the letters are on the piece of paper, how they're formed, how they're spaced.
Scott looks for the idiosyncrasies, the little details that give a person's handwriting its individual character.
For instance,
That's Lulu, my battle buddy.
Fine,
Right?
Short, the very bottom of it.
Yeah, see, everybody wants their pet. Yes. Mix the big opera. What is this? Oh, wait. Were you trying to get that?
Well, this is not in itself a
were you trying to get that, Lulu?
It is not the way it was.
Okay.
After comparing the note with Ward's known handwriting, Scott was confident that both documents were written by the same person. Investigators then examined the bedspread, quilt, and baking suit bottom found in Ward's house.
Let me freshen up a little.
His mother supplied the matching top, which she found in Gilbreth's home. Because hundreds of identical bathing suits were manufactured and sold, the prosecution had to prove that the bottom found at Ward's and the top found at the Gilbreths were parts of the same suit. To make that assessment, the lab had to compare the amount of fiber wear on both parts of the suit. They concluded that the bottom matched the top. The suit belonged to Nakia Gilbreth.
This is what I have to get rid of.
The investigation
Did the air roller. I go upstairs. I'll do a set of 10. Do one set. 10.
I knew that these types of bedspreads did not come commercially when manufactured with a sheet sewn to it. So I knew that the item had been altered by somebody. After determining that, I then examined the baby quilt. When I pulled the baby quilt out, I immediately recognized that this was homemade.
Santa Maria called Detective Bedford. These two items, the bedspread and the blanket, were absolutely unique, one-of-a-kind items. They were a direct link from the suspect's home back to the victim. This evidence completed the case against James Ray Ward.
She passed away.
At Ward's trial, Nikia's mother-in-law testified that she had stitched a sheet onto the bedspread to cover the rough
December.
And had sewn the baby
first week in December. But there were certain things that I knew I wasn't sure of. I didn't want to know that she would be passing soon. But anyway, we can listen to the show.
On the morning of August 17th, Ward watched Joe Gilbreth leave for work. When his heart was safe, he entered the Gilbreth home and abducted Nakia.
Checking something.
I believe he pulled the telephone wires and cord away from the wall. I believe he bound her.
Almost compressed. I had a friend of mine, Brian, came over yesterday. For some reason, my C drive is so full. But I don't have everything organized, and he's going to help me with that. You know, what I might do is record that, because I think that might be of interest to everybody out there who knows nothing about the computers, which I don't know anything, you know, just very, very, very little. So, you know, I'll get his permission if we can go over, let's say, this part of cleaning out. Gosh, I wish I had recorded it last night. I mean, it was intense. Okay, anyway. No. Lulu. Go to the front. Okay.